Here on CBS Sports HQ, should we preview the Jaguars season? Pete Prisco says by 2 years they're competing for a Super Bowl championship. Their season in review, they had 3 different starting quarterbacks. They should just have one next season, with Trevor Lawrence likely to be the #1 overall pick for Jacksonville, and a team that some, including Pete, expect to compete for a playoff spot right away. All right, so let's preview the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to preview one team each and every weekday here on CBS Sports HQ around 4:30 Eastern Time. We got Pete Prisco, Bryant McFadden, and Will Brinson, host of the Pick Six podcast. Pete, what are some other team needs for the Jaguars? I know there's a lot.
Yeah, we'll just throw a blanket over the entire roster. They need it. This is a bad football team, and they have a lot of spots that need to be filled. If you start at left tackle, they have to make a decision. Cam Robinson's an unrestricted free agent. What do you do there? I think they need to add a pass-catching tight end in free agency, maybe Jonnu Smith, somebody like that. They need to get more speed at running back. James Robinson's a good player, but not a speed back. They need more speed at wide receiver. And on defense, they're going to switch to a 3-4, which, standing up Josh Allen and Caleb Von Chase on, which means you need bigger people down players, and maybe another corner and a safety. Other than that, they're all set.
Yeah, they need a lot. Yeah, you're right, Pete. They need a lot. They have quite a few free agents at the wide receiver position, so clearly trying to add depth there is imperative. I like to hit on the defensive side, though, Pete. You hit on something that I would like to highlight, the interior defensive linemen. They were a big-time disappointment last year. They were very, very inconsistent. They didn't cause any disruption to the offensive line they face week in and week out. And the best way to be able to improve your defense, you need to improve the interior, being able to start from the ground level on the first level, and everything else will follow suit. Taven Bryant has been a big-time disappointment. First rounder a few years ago from the University of Florida. The last 3 years, only 3.5 sacks. So he hasn't really done anything that many thought he would do there in Duval County. And I think that has to be an emphasis for their defense, being able to get better in the interior to make the entire defense better.
Look, I was saying I don't know what you want me to add, but the Jaguars need a lot. Their team is terrible. They have very few NFL starting caliber players on defense. And certainly need help with the skill positions to supplement the eventual drafting of Trevor Lawrence, which is really the only reason Urban Meyer left that cushy studio gig.
Okay, so let's move on to the free agents that Jacksonville may or may not choose to re-sign. Pete, who are some of those guys?
Well, I mentioned Cam Robinson, and I wouldn't re-sign him, and I don't think they will, unless it's a cheap deal. He didn't play very well. If that's the ceiling for Cam Robinson in a contract year, then you have major problems. So I think he walks, and they go get a replacement, whether through the draft or in free agency, maybe a veteran tackle. But I think they let Cam Robinson walk. You look at the wide receiver position, D.D. Westbrook, he tore up his knee. I doubt he's going to get much play on the market. Keelan Cole's an interesting number 3. Who could be back with the team or could go elsewhere for a team looking for a young number 3 wide receiver. And on defense, they really don't have a lot that they have to keep. One guy to keep an eye on, Dwan Smoot. He's actually been a reserve defensive lineman for them, and he's done some really good things. The problem with him is if they do go to that 3-4 scheme, they need bigger guys, and he might not fit. So he might be going elsewhere as a backup defensive lineman on somebody else's team.
Yeah, the big fish, when you look at their free agents, clearly is Cam Robinson. I'm right there with Pete. I don't think you need to overpay for his services. He was a bit inconsistent. Not to mention, when you look at some tackles that may be available, a guy like Trent Williams could be an ideal player to fill those shoes left by Cam Robinson. The wide receivers, one of those guys will return, in my opinion. Will it be Cole? Will it be Westbrook? I think Cole might be the guy they return, bring back, especially with the injury concerns at Westbrook. And then defensively in the secondary, DJ Hayden, he didn't play bad. He didn't just blow you away with his numbers as well. But when you talk about having a secondary, especially at the cornerback position with so many young players, he's a savvy vet, been around the game for quite some time. So that could be an intriguing name to watch out for, especially not knowing what they can get in free agency at the cornerback position.
Yeah, look, they're going to be drafting a quarterback with the first overall pick, and they're going to be dropping him into a bad situation. So, when you have your starting left tackle and 3 of your, 5 most important wide receivers who are free agents, you better figure something out pretty quickly. And I mean, I know that I'm not suggesting they should sign Cam Robinson to some monster deal and bring him back. And Pete knows that team better than just about anybody, and certainly better than me. But I would be a little worried about bringing in a guy like Trevor Lawrence with the expectations that are heaped on him with all with the lack of talent on that offense right now.
So, Pete, I mean, when you look at the free agents that Jacksonville could be looking to bring in, are you looking at guys on the offensive line there?
You know, it just depends. And, you know, Trent Williams' name has been mentioned, but he's 33 years old, and this team is building for something. But you say you're building for something, and something means sooner now than it used to mean. So, you know, if you're Urban Meyer, you don't have all day to win. You want to win. So Trent Williams for 3 years might not be a bad signing for them at left tackle. They definitely need to get a pass-catching tight end, which is why Jonnu Smith is a name that I think will apply there as well. Hunter Henry, if they don't tag him with the Chargers or re-sign him with the Chargers. So there are options out there. But this is a slow team across the board. They're slow. And that's why I think Curtis Samuel's a name that could be mentioned as a wide receiver. And we know Urban Meyer loves Curtis Samuel. He loves to get creative with guys like that. He loved Percy Harvin, same type of player. So they need to get faster, and I think that's going to be priority in free agency. And then you go to the draft, you get Lawrence, and then you can fill in the holes around him.
Yeah, the best way to get the most out of your young quarterback is to shore up the offensive line. I love the ideal of maybe entertaining Trevor Williams. Like you said, Pete, a 3-year deal. He's still got 3 good years left in the tank, in my opinion, and he shores up the left side of that offensive line. Pass catching wise, you want to get the most out of your quarterback, give him some proven guys that can catch passes from him. You talk about speed. Yes, I love the Curtis Samuel ideal, but what about a guy like Will Fuller who played in the division? You know they know him extremely well. Granted, he will be suspended to start the season off, but he definitely improves the speed element of your offense if you're able to entertain or acquire him. And one name that I mentioned earlier in the show, Pete, I don't know how you feel about this, maybe reuniting with Allen Robinson. This is a new regime, and I understand and I know he left not necessarily on bad terms, but things didn't work out for him like he expected it to do in Duval. They have a young quarterback that's very, very attractive when you look at pass catchers. Maybe trying to get Allen Robinson right back there would definitely shore up the pass catching position for them on the offensive side.
Yeah, and, you know, look, this is a team with a ton of money to spend and a lot of assets. And again, a young quarterback coming in. And I'll echo what those guys said. I mean, I think I don't usually advocate going out and spending a bunch of money in free agency. But given that you are always hit or miss with the draft, even when it comes to wide receivers, as good as the last 2 years have been, I mean, why not go into free agency and sign some guys, some younger guys that can grow with Trevor Lawrence? I mean, Pete mentioned Curtis Samuel. I think that's a great idea. We're talking about a guy that's be 25 next year. Chris Godwin, who we talked about earlier on the show, I mean, he's still really young. We don't know if the Bucs will franchise tag him or not. Of course, Allen Robinson, I don't think is a bad idea at all either. He's 28. Juju Smith-Schuster, 25. Corey Davis, 26. I mean, there's just a lot of young guys out there. Will Fuller, still just 27. I mean, this is a really good free agent wide receiver class. How is Sammy Watkins 28? That's crazy. Should be I thought he was like 43. But my point being is that sign some of these young guys that you can actually bring in during their prime instead of signing them after their breakout season.
Yeah, Pete, what do you make of what the guys said about Allen Robinson maybe going back to where everything started?
He's what they don't need. He doesn't run. I mean, he's a 50-50 jump ball guy. He's a good receiver, but they got that in DJ Chark, who actually is faster than Allen Robinson. They need speed. They need quickness. And that's why I mentioned Curtis Samuel. You know, Will Fuller, but he doesn't stay on the field. That's always a problem with him. You know, if they can get a guy like Curtis Samuel, or how about Rondell Moore or Kadarius Toney in the draft? Those are two guys that flat out can fly. And you might be able to get Rondell Moore in the second round. You might be able to get Toney in the back end of the first round, if that's what you want to do. But we learned from the Super Bowl, if there's anything that we learned, look, quarterback play is great. It drives this league. But you better be good up front on both lines. Tampa Bay won that game because they were good on the offensive line, because they drafted Tristan Wirfs, because they drafted Ali Marpet. They went out and signed Alex Kappa didn't play. They drafted him. They signed Ryan Jensen as a free agent. And on defense, they supplemented what they had by signing Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett. You better be good on both lines, and I think that's where Jacksonville's focus needs to be.
A lot of pieces of the puzzle still to fill in, but we know Urban Meyer's there. We know Trevor Lawrence is going to go there. So, Pete, what are your early expectations for next season in Jacksonville?
Look, they should be competing for a playoff spot. No question about it. And that sounds crazy. What if Trevor Lawrence is Justin Herbert? What if they spend all that money in free agency? Because, look, this is a year, let's not forget, there are 17 teams, I think, or 18 teams that aren't underneath the cap right now. There's going to be a lot of opportunity. You can sign one guy right off the bat if you want to, and then just wait for the market to flush out and go back in and get as many guys as you can, because you have the most cap room in a year where a lot of teams don't have it. All those draft picks for the top 45, if you can't turn that thing around in a year, and by that I mean competing for a division title or maybe a playoff spot, and then the following year for a Super Bowl, then Urban Meyer's done a bad job.
Whoa, Pete. I mean, my goodness, I know you love using the microwave because you like to heat things up fast. I mean, sometimes it's okay to use the crock pot. It's a slow cooker, but the process, you really appreciate the process when you finally taste the food out of the crock pot. Competing for a playoff spot, playoffs? They only won 2 ball games last year. I mean, you got to crawl before you can walk. And you're talking about in the AFC? Granted, yes, there is an extra playoff spot now for playoff teams. We all know about that. But you're talking about competing for a playoff spot for a team that only won 2 ball games with so many unknowns that will be added to their team, not to mention a new coach, a young quarterback that lacks talent. Granted, they have the resources, but we don't know exactly what they will do with the resources. So me personally, I see, realistically speaking, let's see if they can get to 7 to 8 ball games, something like that. Because the AFC is going to be a sticky conference to compete in. Kansas City, they're not going anywhere. Baltimore, Cleveland, Buffalo, Tennessee. I mean, even without knowing who the quarterback is for the Colts, the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Chargers. I mean, that is a very, very tough conference to compete in. So I'm not saying playoffs year one. I'm going to go ahead and put my food in the crock pot and allow it to process and do what it's supposed to do. And whenever it's ready to come out, I'll eat them. But I don't like using the microwave like Pete Prisco.
Hey, how are the Jaguars going to win a Super Bowl when the Bengals are going to get one in the next 2 years? What are we doing here? Since they fired Jack Del Rio, 5-2, 4-3, 5-3, 10, 5-6-1. Those are the Jaguars' wins in the seasons since they let go of Jack Del Rio. What will compete for a Super Bowl? What playoffs is B-Mac? I mean, somebody drug test this guy already. Good Lord. The Jaguars, look, if the Jaguars become a decent team and win 5 or 6 games in the next year, that's great. Trevor Lawrence is awesome, Pete, but we just saw the depth chart in the free agents. They got nothing, nada. Now, I know you want to pin it on Urban if he can't flip it around quickly, but this is a project. This is a crock pot lasagna, baby.
Crock pot.
No, you got to use the microwave. You got to use the microwave. Nobody has time for the crock pot. You're going to stand there and wait for that rotten pot roast all damn day, and you're going to get it out of there, and it's going to pick apart. You don't even want it. You want it now. Everybody wants it now. Use an air fryer, by the way. It's a lot better for you.
Air fryers are great.
It might not be ready now, Pete. That's
Guys,
okay. I mean, you saying compete for a playoffs in year one. They don't, like Will said, this team has been bad. They've been consistently bad over the last few years with a new coaching staff. I do expect to see improvements, but not compete for a playoff spot? No.
I'm glad I've got a front row seat for this.
Let's put it this way. This team next year will be better probably than the team that went to the championship game a couple years ago, because Trevor Lawrence and the offense will be significantly better than that offense with Blake Bortles. Significantly better.
Oh. You're talking about when they were named Saxonville? That's what you're saying? When they were named Saxonville?
Correct.
So you're telling me that the team that should have beaten the Patriots, if not for the errant Miles Jack call by the referees, and then maybe even won the Super Bowl, will be that the 2021 Jaguars will be better than the 2017 Jaguars?
I'm not going to say they're going to have that type of season, but as a team, they will be better on offense for sure.
Better on offense. Okay, leave it out to
defense. Clip it and put it on the Twitter machine.
Yeah,
but Will, he said better on offense. He kind of gave himself a little room for error. He said better on offense. He didn't say in totality the entire team. So okay, Pete. I can let that.
Trevor Lawrence is the truth. I think that he could be incredible, and Urban Meyer's a great coach, but you're asking the guy to lift up a lot of bad weight in terms of what they got around it.
Okay, so Pete Prisco's got Joe Burrow winning 2 of the next 9 Super Bowls, and he's got Jacksonville in the playoffs next season and in the Super Bowl the season after. Fellas, always fun. Thank you so much. Pete Prisco, Will Brinson, and Bryant McFadden.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.